Are you looking for an escape from manufactured truth wrapped in selfish agenda? Don't you just want to have a real and raw conversation, all masks and rules aside? That's what you're getting here at Titan Evolution Podcast. Get rid of all the nonsense information and discuss everything under the sun without filters. Listen to real stories of real people who will put your current perspectives to the test, guide you on living the life you truly want, and see everything free from judgment and pretenses. Time to get rid of those unhealthy environments and let your authentic self shine. Here are your hosts, Travis Johnson and Carol Carpenter.
Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm here with Mariel Anderson. Mariel, how are you doing today?
Just dandy. How about you?
Just dandy. I am doing fan-fucking-tastic, as always. Mariel is a remarkable. Am I a host? Do I know how to say words?
The struggle is there.
I am not gonna edit this out, by the way. Like this is staying in. Mariel is a remarkable individual who embodies the motto, see the light, be the light. Despite enduring a series of traumatic events, Mariel has dedicated her life to promoting mental health and founded the Shine Foundation for Artistic Expression. Words.
Not Arctic.
Arctic expression. This is my polar bear.
Go into the Arctic,
this is how we express ourselves. Artistic expression. Join us as we explore Mariel's inspiring journey and the impact of the Shine FAE in raising awareness and supporting mental well-being through Arctic/artistic expression.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Words. Look, I don't even know where to start with you. Like, there's so many cool things. Where do you want to start? What do you want to talk about today?
Everything.
Here it is. Theory of everything.
I don't even know where to begin either. The beginning? I don't know.
So is Shine Foundation, is that your like primary gig, or are you doing something else?
No, that's my primary thing. It's my primary thing. Yes. I'm actually in the process of changing it from a nonprofit to a charity, which is like this massive journey that's been really fun.
Is that because of Canada's rules of weirdness?
Yes. Yeah. And it's just like you have to create this, binder that you then go thud on their desk, and then they have the power to say, you spelled something wrong. No. Right. So
are you going to use it? Are you going to fill up your Trapper Keeper and take it into the government so they can bless you with tax-free status? Is that what the deal is?
That's one of the things for sure. Yeah. And then we can give our, donors and sponsors and all that tax receipt that enables them to get some refunds and all that kind of stuff. So it just helps us be able to make bigger impact, because people are more likely to donate, funds to help us do that when we can give them that receipt.
Yeah, I've definitely found that to be the case in America too. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to support your stuff." Da, 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 da. And they're like, "Are you a 501c3?" And they're like, "I'm working on it." Like, well, when you get over that hump, we're happy to help. And you're like,
exactly
shit,
right.
I gotta do all this other paperwork. Like, I get it.
That's where I
get it.
That's where I am.
But like we met like a year, 18 months ago, something like that. And I think like on your videos and all your stuff you were doing online, you were talking about like relationship stuff. Isn't that right?
Yeah, totally. So I actually, I went to school and got my BA degree in counseling. And throughout my life's experiences, I have always found myself being very much guided towards helping people in their relationships, sexually, intimacy, romantic, all of that fun stuff, which is really funny because it's just the total opposite of how I grew up. I grew up in a very Christian conservative home. And so that was like, there was a bubble of just like, that was in the no bubble. Right.
And I don't get that, because it doesn't say any of that in the Bible anywhere. It doesn't say thou shalt not have fun in the bedroom. Like, it doesn't say that.
Yeah. But so what's one area that I do have clients and do coach in is sexual intimacy relationships. And I actually gear towards working with men.
Really? Why do you think that is?
Because I feel like when we are able to heal men's views, perspectives, own hurts around intimacy, around, what that looks like on every level, that then we have all these men who are empowered to love and be loved in a healthy way. And then that just like is a massive ripple effect into families and, outward into society and all of these things. And I feel like also that men are less likely to go and search out that help or talk about it, right? Like men's mental health globally is like,
It's in the shitter.
there's so many, yes, like there's so many terrible stats about, suicides and mental health and overdoses and drug use and all of these things. And men have the majority of those going on. Like, yes, women do for sure, but we're also more likely to seek help or seek support or talk about our feelings, whereas you guys, you don't, right? And so I feel like there's enough service, not enough, there could always be more, but going on for women.
Oh yeah, no, I fully agree. In fact, one of the last speeches I did talked about the state of men and what is going on with them, and kind of broad strokes, at least from an American perspective, like World War II, that whole event really damaged the men in this country. Obviously, huge amounts. Right, went overseas to fight, and of course there was ladies too. But when you talk about like the Judeo-Christian view of how the family is, and then we're talking historical stuff, right? The guy is generally the leader and stuff like that. But they were so broken after those events, and then Korea and Vietnam to continue it on, and now Persian Gulf, global war on terrorism. Like we're just doing it to every new generation of men. But after World War II specifically, men were really hurting, and they got into alcohol abuse and drug abuse and treating their spouses and their children terribly. And it just went on from there. That, along with legislation that really allowed welfare as a thing for and support for single moms, as that started branching out. So where we're at currently is we're in a place where we have a generation of single moms, mostly single parents, but they were raised by a generation of single parents. And so when we look back, even including childhood, the early 1900s is when the child labor laws came into effect. So before then, through all of time, there wasn't such a thing as childhood, right? As soon as you could start lifting a hammer or doing whatever the job was that needed to be done, you started working on the farm or wherever you were at. And then it's like the 19 teens, somewhere in there, they were like, kids under 7 can't work anymore. And then they kept moving that lineup. So we've got a bunch of single family homes. We haven't figured out as a society how to even have a childhood yet. We don't know what still don't know what we're doing. Following, and then the broken men and the broken homes. And so instead of encouraging someone that's going through problems to stay with their spouse, and I'm not talking about an abuse situation. I'm talking about where they just they're fighting, or they're not getting along, or they're just bored or whatever. And then they go ask their single friends or their parents who are single parents, oh, I did it. You can do it. You really can do it. But there is just something that ladies don't know and understand about raising a man. The speech that I did, I'll get your thoughts in here in just a second. The speech that I did, I was doing at a Toastmasters event, and there was all ladies. It's like me and a bunch of ladies, like my perfect event, right? But I used a little story about one of the young men that I had help me fix my fence. He is completely broken. He's like 23, has no idea how life works. I was talking to him a little bit, and he did something that I know inherently is not right. It's not wrong, but he's putting power tools down in the dirt, put him down on the ground. And I was like, hey man, like tools don't go in the dirt. These are the tools that you use to make money, right? So they get taken care of. So they get put down on a hard clean surface. They don't get just tossed in the dirt. I'm not talking about a shovel, but like a saw and a few different things. Like we're in the dirt. He's like, yeah, I ended up spending a lot of money replacing all the parts and the bits and all this stuff. I was like, if you put it someplace where it won't roll away or hide in the grass, like you're not going to do it. And all the gals that I was speaking to, none of them knew that guy rule of not putting tools there. They had never heard it. And I'm not saying that ladies aren't capable. I'm not saying that in the slightest. There's just some things they don't understand about a man. Ladies like face-to-face stuff. Guys like being shoulder to shoulder. Not
Yeah.
talking and sitting shoulder to shoulder and watching a game builds rapport in a relationship with men. It doesn't work with women. So all the single moms that get down on their knees and look their son in the eye, look me in the eye. Guys don't do that when they're in trouble. They don't look someone in the eye. It's wrong for guys to do that. It's not how we work. But then moms force them to do that. They're just so outside of their being and character. And obviously, not all people are the same, but we're at a really place where the men are hurting and lost and not understanding how to move forward. And then they're not talking about it. And one of the reasons I do this show and all the other stuff I do is I talk about my shit to give guys primarily permission to share their own stuff.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on all this?
Okay, so now we're gonna rewind. No, no, it's so important, and you're right. There are so many things that women don't understand, and so in some ways, it's kind of a beautiful thing where with women who are equipped with emotional regulation and communication and all of those kind of things, then you're seeing, the boys who are growing up with them becoming men who understand that, but then they become maybe a little bit outside of what other normal men would act like or be like, and they're considered a little bit more feminine or, and all these things, and all of a sudden they get stapled with all these labels, right? Because they grew up learning things in a different way, different perspective. Yeah, no, that's interesting though. That's my first time having somebody explain the shoulder to shoulder versus the like face to face thing to me. That's really interesting. I grew up with brothers. My parents stayed together. I have a dad. I was going to say had a dad. I still have a dad. And but he didn't really talk a lot about his emotions either. He didn't really, right? And so there's a lot of things there. Yeah, there's a lot. Mental health is huge. Like it's just a global pandemic that's going on. Everybody was so talking about this, pandemic and COVID and like all this stuff. And yet, okay, can we just stop for a minute? Because mental health issues have been around longer than COVID has. And that is something that is growing exponentially every day. Like, why are we not talking more about that? Right. And I think that like hurt people.
Well, you know how the number one way to tell if someone's broken, don't you?
What? How?
If they're breathing.
What
They're
does that mean?
breathing. They're broken. They really are. And some people listening to this might push back and like, I'm not broken. I get it. That fierce response tells me that that's not true.
Yeah.
But no matter what, childhood looked like for anybody, right? We always try to fix the things that bothered us as kids with our kids, right? So, back in the day, get abuse in the home, right? That was huge. That next generation built homes without abuse in them. And then, but they weren't taking care of like basic needs stuff, shelter, clothing, all that stuff, weren't taking care of that. So then the next generation focused on that stuff. And then the kids are like, Dad, you really fucked up. Like, you're not emotionally available. Well, shit, girl, I didn't know there was emotions until like 2 weeks ago. I had no idea there was more than one. Right. So the next generation, like my daughter's generation, they're going to grow up having all that stuff done. And they're really going to focus on the emotional needs and the communication with their kids. But they're going to miss something for that next generation that's going to come by and fix it. Like, you fucked me up. You didn't do, I don't know what the thing is. But every generation has the thing that didn't work out with the generation before. So it takes time to get through this stuff and work it out. And I think the last 100 years have been amazing in the growth in some of those areas. But like, I really didn't know about emotions at all. And my daughter was, feeling really sad about our relationship when we've been working on it, and it's going in a good direction. But like, I didn't know. Right. I didn't know hardly how to function, let alone that there were more than one emotion. And I was also supposed to care about other people's emotions when I didn't have any. I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And it's like, I say that to so many people, is that our kids are going to end up in therapy because of us one way or another. Like it is what it is. You could have parents like mine who have been together since they were 15 years old. And like our house was seemingly full of love. Right. And they did the best that they could. But I mean, all four of us kids are fucked up because of the choices that they made on how to raise us, right? And all
Mhm.
four of us should be going to therapy. Right? And then
Yeah.
I have a daughter, and I'm like, okay, these are the things that fucked me up from my mom and my dad. So I'm not going to do that to you. But even in teaching her, raising her in the way that is opposite of my parents, I know that I am lacking in something, and she will end up needing to talk to somebody and process it one day. Right?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
it just, yeah, you can only, it's like we do the best that we can with the tools that we have. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's just being able to be, I think that's one thing that I love about my life, is that I'm continuing to always search for new tools. Like, what's a
Mm.
different way I can explain this, or what's a different way I can process this for myself, so that I can then teach somebody else how to do it. Like, life is about an evolution, about growing. It's not about, these are the cards that I was dealt, and so I'm just gonna like fucking whatever, right?
Mm. I
Yeah.
I like that you used that term. These are the cards that I was dealt. Have you ever played a card game before?
Never.
Never. I
Yes.
didn't think that you had, being Canadian. Um,
Cards are
obviously, it's a Canadian thing. Uh, someone's like, "Well, I was just playing the hand that I was dealt." I was like, you can fold that crappy hand and get dealt a new one.
yeah.
In every card game I've ever played,
Yeah.
you get the chance to get different cards all the
Yeah.
time. But the cards that I was dealt were crappy. I
Yeah.
played those as long as I could, but I held on them for far too long. And when I finally folded them, there was a whole other world out there waiting for me, available for me, that I
Right.
didn't know existed because I was so focused on the cards I was dealt. One of
Mm-hmm.
the things I've been doing this summer, and one of the kind of explorations I've been doing, is challenging the things that we think we know.
Mm.
It's something I didn't realize I had kind of done my whole life. And other people will be like, "Yeah, Travis, you're very challenging." And almost like it's a bad thing, but it's not, because we get told something along the way like, "Oh, these were the cards that we dealt, that were
Mm-hmm.
were dealt, and we just gotta deal with it." If you don't challenge that assumption, you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
operate in somewhere in your operating system, in your being, with those words. You're gonna use that for the rest of your life until it gets challenged. You're
Yeah.
gonna hear a soundbite from some politician, and it's gonna sound something stupid like, "It's easier to get a gun than a library card." We're not gonna devolve into a gun control thing. But that sentence is a soundbite, and it's dumb as fuck. Is it true that it's easier to get a gun than a library card? Not in the slightest. But if
Yeah.
you heard that and onboarded it, used it, and repeated it without challenging it,
Mm-hmm.
like, you can't do that. It doesn't work. It might work for
Yeah.
you, but man, it don't work for everybody else.
Oh, but that's like literally like my childhood in a nutshell, because of growing up in a Christian conservative home. Okay, and just like a little disclaimer here. My parents, like, a lot of my stories revolve around how I grew up and how unhealthy it was for me and my siblings. And I challenged my parents 5 years ago. Like, I had to cut them off completely or whatever. 5 years ago, I came to them and said, look, at like, set boundaries, said that this is how I needed to be treated by them. Otherwise, they were not going to see me. They were not going to see my daughter. Like, it was just like at that point where it's like, something needs to change. And if it's not you, then right. And now, over the past 5 years, they have blown my mind with the amount of growth
Mm,
they've come through. Like, it's amazing. But I grew up right in this little bubble, and it was, you couldn't challenge anything. Like,
right.
I was homeschooled until grade 7, and then in grade 7 I went to a Christian private school that was affiliated with the church that we went to. And we had, like, even in our science class, like, it was the creation story. They didn't have any like science in there. If somebody claimed that something was over like a million years old, it was like sacrilege, because the earth isn't a million years old. The Bible says it's X, you know what I mean? Like, and so it was just like all of these things that were like infiltrated into my brain of being truth. This is what is real. And anytime that I challenged it, I am a challenging person. I got in shit.
Yeah.
right? And I just like, we never learned about any other religions or any like sex, like not like nothing, drinking, drugs, like nothing. It was just like, nope, out of the bubble, this is it, do not challenge it.
Right.
Right. And then
Right.
at some point that serves no one any good purpose.
No, I mean, pretending things don't exist in order to maintain the structure of the family or the household, like, it's not helpful.
Right.
And
Right.
Christians should know this, right? Because the way
Mhm.
that the Catholic Church propagated Christianity, really Catholicism, and it's the same thing that's happened over the last couple of generations in the Middle East, is they're the ones holding all the
Mhm.
cards. They're the only one that knows how to read the book, and they're telling you what
Yeah.
it says and not giving you the
Yeah.
chance to explore it on your own. I
Yeah.
I was in the Middle East, for a year, and very much enjoyed the area. Love meeting people, love talking about different things. And some of the things, like I learned some things that really kind of were shocking that I knew could be a thing, but I couldn't quite understand it. One of the things, this is just a random, for instance, like they have like, it's an island, right? It's on the Persian Gulf. It's a beach. There's beach all the way around. And they have like places you could go flyboarding and rent jet skis and cool stuff, and I went on their website and I was like, yeah, this will be great. But they didn't have like posted prices on stuff. And I got there and we did the whatever, had a great day. But I was like, that's weird. Like you don't post prices of your stuff on here. Why is that? And this is his words. He's like, well, the Saudis don't read. And I was like, the Saudis don't read. He's like, yeah, they're great in business and they do all this stuff, but everything's with a handshake and like
Mhm.
their personal integrity, but like they don't read. And I was thinking about that, and I was talking to another friend that had been there for several years, a couple of years, and I was like, "How does terrorism take place?" And this stuff, I was talking about the Quran and it as a whole, and I'm sure people are going to push back on this stuff because just like any religious book, like there's some shit in there too, right? But really, the culture there, when you explain or talk about terrorism, they're like, you cannot be Muslim, you cannot follow the Quran and do that behavior. Like, they don't work. Anyone that's a follower of Islam, like, they don't behave that way. They do some other shady shit that we won't get into. But
Yeah.
if these terrorist groups are doing what the Catholic Church did, and they're holding the book and telling you what it says, and you can't read and verify it yourself, well, of course you can create fanatics and terrorists
Yeah.
because they can't check it for themselves. They can't go and verify that that shit ain't in there. You're lying to us. They can't do it. If they can't read, and I'm not
Yeah.
assuming that they're all illiterate, that doesn't make any sense, but I could see how it could happen in the same way that the Catholic Church did it, generations ago. I could see how we would
Yeah.
get to that point.
Yeah, totally. Right. And it's like when you have people in a controlled environment, right? Then you've taken away their power, really.
Sounds like school.
It's true. It's true. That was cool for me anyways. But
Yeah,
but
that
yeah,
they
just being somebody, like, it's so important to challenge. Like I remember in we had to take Bible class or whatever in school. And the teacher would get us to like memorize a verse from the Bible.
Mhm.
And then we would have a quiz the next day and we would have to write it word for word. And then we would have to write down what it meant, which he would also tell you, of
Oh,
course.
so
Right.
now
And
so
so,
it's like news today. Here's the news story, 2-minute clip. Here's 45 minutes of how you should feel about it.
yes. Right. Okay.
Ugh.
So I'm not lying to you that this was literally a weekly argument between me and this teacher because I would never write what it meant to him. I would always write what it meant to me. And I failed the class because that was how it was. But I just wouldn't like I just couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. I'm like, but that's not what it means to me. I don't understand. Like, what the fuck?
That's one of the reasons they call it the living word, because the definitions and what it means to you changes over time.
Right?
It's
Like it's
supposed
just
to
so
grow
it's
and
so fucked.
evolve with you and your understanding.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not meaning to turn this into a whole religion conversation, but
No, me
seems where we're
neither.
going. Like
It just happened. It happened.
I've been at a crossroads, which is interesting because Travis, the definition really means from the crossroads, which I think is funny.
Oh, really?
But
Okay, yeah.
yeah, right. I've got some shows. I'm doing some podcasting stuff. I love meeting, talking to people. But I'm like, what? Like, is there a point to this? Am I using this for a thing? Like, what is the purpose of some of this stuff that I'm doing other than I just have a great damn time doing it? And so a friend of mine challenged me to go back through the Word and go back and read certain sections in the Bible in a certain order to help kind of understand. So like I went back and read through Matthew, and because I was really studying it, looking
Mhm,
through some of the stories and some of the things Jesus said, like I don't remember like ever reading that stuff at all. Like I'm
mhm.
reading it again for the first time and I'm like, what did he say? He did what? Like this is far different than I, remember. And reading
Mhm,
through obviously all the red text is words spoken by Jesus and different things, but it really is in a different context to where I'm at now. So they recommended that I read the four gospels and then read Paul, which is the most prolific writer in the Bible, and then to go back and read what David wrote, the second most prolific writer in the Bible, and to read them in that order. So I'm interested to see how my thought and direction and my feeling and understanding of this is going to change through those things.
yeah.
I'm kind of
Yeah, totally.
excited to
I'm
see what
interested
happens.
too. I'm interested too. You have to give me an update on that. It's been a
Yeah.
while since I read the book.
But I think you and I had, very different but somehow both tumultuous upbringings. You
Mhm,
sounded like you were in basically the same house with the same family for the whole time, and I was in 36 different places, and I live with my mom or my
mhm,
grandma or in foster care of all these other things. And when you go through things in life, they suck, right? They suck at whatever level they suck for. But I'm really under the impression that all of those things shape and create who we are. Like when I look at problems or things that happen, my like chaos, my scale of chaos in my life is much different than the average person, right? Something that might be a 4 on my scale because it's like, it's a thing, but it's not, anything to work. Might be a 9 or a 10 on somebody else's scale, right? So my scale for chaos is vastly skewed. One of the great things about it is everything is burning down. Like I know how to operate. I know how to do it. I know how to keep a calm head. I knew how to get things done. When chaos existed in my life as a kid, I knew I was learning different ways, many different ways to solve the same problem. I would see it done in all these different locations with different families and different people, and I see it being done in different ways. But I saw all of them reaching the goal of whatever it was. So I know that there's not just one way to solve something. I also can meet and talk to people and make fast friends with damn near anybody because I was changing schools. I was always changing neighbors. I was always in a new church. I was always in a new environment. And those are some of the fruit that came from what was planted within me. How would you say, what are some of the things, some of the fruit of your life based on some of the things that you've experienced?
I think one of the things is that um the sense of belonging and being in like a safe space where you weren't judged, you were just able to be you and be loved for who you were. That was something that was really lacking in my life. And so, because of that, and that's such an innate need for us is to be able to feel safe and feel like we belong. And when you don't get that in your family unit, you all of a sudden are searching for it everywhere, right? And you get yourselves into lots of trouble sometimes trying trying to find that. Um, but it but you know what it feels like to not have that.
Mhm.
And so, like for me, I know what that felt like, and it was so like detrimental to who I was as a kid. I just wanted a home where I wasn't going to be judged or where I could talk about things and I wouldn't be getting in trouble for being curious or all of these things. And so because of that, I have become somebody who is that, like, right? Kind of like you, I'm a chameleon. Like I can go anywhere and be in any sort of group, any sort of culture, subculture, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I will be okay. Like I will have social anxiety because I just do. But but I'll be okay. And I will leave that situation and people will feel like they would like for me to come back. Like I made them feel like they belong with me. It doesn't matter where I go, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so that's something that is that's definitely walked with me through my life, was just being able to create that space within myself for me belonging to me being a safe space for me, and then anybody who comes in contact with me, how can I make you feel like you can just breathe and be authentic and just be unconditionally loved.
Mm,
Yeah.
that is wonderful. I don't think I've been able to do that quite yet. Um, because some people call me challenging, some people call me a straight up instigator. It's like every time I'm in public, like I'm trying to conduct some kind of social experiment. Like
Hmm.
I know I've said this before on the show, but I love finding people that are stuck in their hamster wheel of whatever the
Hmm.
thing is, that whatever routine they're doing. I want to like just like kick them off their hamster wheel so they can join me in a moment. And
Yeah.
one of my favorite people to do that with is like waiters and waitresses. Not like when they're slammed, right? Not when they're just
Yeah.
trying to get stuff done and make it through the day. But like if there's, some space and they're not too, like at a brewery across the street from my house, and there's a guy, his eye was like messed up, obviously injured. Like there was like red, there was like blood in the eyeball, and it was very obvious. And he came to the table and was like, "Holy shit, man! Like, should you be in the hospital?"
Hmm.
And got into that interaction and had made him laugh and some other stuff, and came back at the end, and he was like, I went to the hospital like 2 weeks ago, and I've been working because I really have to. He's like, but you're the first person to ever ask if I was okay. Not at the restaurant, at the brewery,
Hmm.
in 2 weeks. No one he
Wow.
interacted with from the incident on asked if he was okay, if he needed help.
Hmm.
And that, I mean, that breaks my heart a little bit, that people are just not engaging with the people around them, right? They'll
Yeah.
go to their lunch and they'll have their little circle of people, and they run through the same kind of discussion they always have about sports or whatever garbage to drum up
Yeah.
and chat about. And like the whole rest of the restaurant doesn't exist. And they're just on their hamster wheel of how they interact with those people, and they never do anything different. And
Yeah.
they never challenge anything. And they
Mhm.
almost don't ever seem like they're even trying to grow as a person at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you
Those
think
are,
about that?
I can't be around people like that.
The instigators like me, or like people that are
No, I
just,
love instigators like you because I'm similar, right? Like,
yeah.
and it's true. It's just it's so important to be able to see outside and to be able to acknowledge that everybody has a life, and you, when you are in that person's presence, you're a part of that person's life, whether that's for a split second because they're your waiter, or it's an extended period of time because they come on as a client, or whatever that looks like, they're a follower on social media. You get to have, you share a moment in time with that person. Like, so why are we not putting more intention into what we do with that moment?
Mm,
Right? Like, it's just it's such an important piece. I used to work at a safe house for at-risk teen boys. Okay. This house, oh my god, the stories are just like endless.
yes, I
Endless.
imagine.
Right. But there was this one boy that was there. He was actually the first one in the house on my first time coming to work. He was there, and he was there for probably about 7 months, because he was
Hmm.
just from an abusive home, and all of these things that put these kids into a safe house. And him and I were having a talk, and he would always come home stoned, and I was supposed to get him in trouble and like write it up and call people
And you
and
were
do
like,
all those
puff,
things.
puff, pass, dude. You got to
And I
share that
was like,
stuff.
I'm not gonna fucking do that. No, I can't. I didn't do that.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know
I
your
mean, maybe
life.
I wanted to, but no. But what would happen is he would come home, and he was good at art. Like, whenever I would see him doodling sometimes, and he was really good. And so when he came home and he was quite obviously like blazed to high heaven, I, he'd be like, I want to watch TV and eat snacks. And I was like, no, no TV. snacks, sure, but we're gonna go sit at the table and you're gonna do art.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he was like, what the fuck, right? Like he hated it, but he also loved it at the same time. So then
Yeah.
him and I would sit there and he would draw and he would like then start talking to me about his life and, and all of these things, right? And throughout all of these stories, I would just listen. And then finally one day I said to him, you're really important. I was like, I feel like you need to know that. Like, you're important. When you show up back here after you leave, I'm glad that you came home.
Mm-hmm.
And you are now a player in my life. And I'm glad that you're here. And the look on his face was just like, like color left his face. And he was just looking at me like totally blankly. And he said, you're the first person who has ever told me that. And I was like, holy shit.
How old was he?
Right. He was 16.
Oh man,
Right.
that
And
is.
it's like but how often? So, all these people who are the instigators or the troublemakers or who are doing things that you're just shaking your head or, they're standing outside the door causing a ruckus or whatever it is. Those are usually the people who don't know that they're important, who've never been told that they're valued, who've never been handed the tools or the support or the love to make better choices and better decisions. Right. And it's amazing how impactful you saying that to that waiter or me saying that to that boy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that actually stay with them forever.
Yeah,
And it's something so simple.
it really is. I frequented several foster homes in my youth, and
Mm-hmm.
um, for me, that was always the most loving, supporting environment I was ever in because everything
Mm-hmm.
else was just much more crazy. I didn't feel at home. I didn't know what that feeling was, like I'm home and safe, till I was in like
Mm-hmm.
my 30s. Like I didn't have that feeling for 30 years. And what you said there, that you said that he matters, there was always like some person in my life for whatever season that they were on the roster for, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had some people that poured into my life, which is really what got me through all that stuff. So the fact that you took the time to really be with him
Mm-hmm.
and then actually tell him what you thought of him because he needed to hear it. Like
Yeah.
that is just so valuable, and so many more people need to be able to do something like that. Just just be present with the people around you, even if it's just
Yeah.
even if you only stand to do it for like 3 minutes a day, like do that 3 minutes, whatever that
Yeah.
is. Please, dear
Yeah.
God, take that 3 minutes to say something nice to someone around you. Like
Yeah.
be a little encouraging. Tell me like, you know what? Like you're doing great. I really appreciate you. Like that
Yeah.
goes such a long way. It goes such a long way towards people just maintaining their humanity.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been talking for a little while right now, and I've got to ask the question that I love to ask is I want to know what makes you a Titan.
Okay. I think that my ability to understand that life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us is something that has made me a Titan because it's been able, like me understanding that even I think I understood that before there was words for it for years and years and years and years because so
Yeah.
many things happened to me that were not in my control, right? Like growing up in a Christian home, that's like I had no control over how my parents were choosing to raise me. Or, I've been raped multiple times and I didn't choose that. Or, there's like all of these different situations that happen, trauma that arises, and being able to say, okay, but I didn't have a choice in that. What do I have a choice in? How am I going to look at that, learn something from it, or have it become something that it doesn't have to stay negative? I don't have to be a victim. In that moment, or that time frame, I was maybe a victim, but that's not where I need to stay.
Mm,
Right. And like, I don't ever want to feel powerless.
right.
right? And so when you're able to understand and how to regain your power and be courageous in that, then that's something that I think makes a Titan.
Oh, I love that. I love that. This is a topic that comes up quite frequently on the show, and in every other area of my life is it's not about the event. It's about what
Mhm.
you get from the event.
Yeah.
There's no number on the stock market that is the reason for your life, right? When it's at the highest it's ever been, people are going bankrupt. And when it falls through the bottom, like people are making billions of dollars. Like the fact that it goes up or down has nothing to do with your life. Right? It
Mhm.
doesn't mean anything. Whoever it is, the president or the prime minister, like how much effect do they really have on your life? Maybe something, maybe one or two things. But if you're sitting around just blaming the president all day, like that doesn't help
Yeah.
you. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter whose fault it is or where the blame
Yeah.
is if the thing happened, and what are you gonna do with it now that it
Yeah.
happened, now that that's happened?
Yeah.
And being raped, growing up in foster care, going through terrible things. Everyone's going through something
Yes.
horrendous.
Yep.
They all have. It's different label on every story, but
Mhm.
it happened. So now what?
Now
Are you
what?
going
Yeah.
to take responsibility for your life and everything in it and move forward?
Mhm.
Or are you going to stay in the victimhood and play your sad song everywhere? And I'm not saying that people don't need time to heal. I'm not saying that at all.
No. Yeah.
I'm saying it's been 6 years since whatever the thing is that happened.
Mhm.
Are you seeking healing? Are you trying to make
Yeah.
it better? Are you growing as a person? Are
Yeah.
you, what is the thing that's happening? I won't discount a bad day, but if you're in my inner circle, like the next day, I'm like, all right, what are we doing about it?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
100%, right? And that's totally a good point, like bringing up the processing. It takes time to process trauma. And you know what? There's times where like the first time I got raped, I was 15 years old. Okay? Long time ago. So, after 15 years, now, no, oh my god, 20 years. Holy shit, I'm old. Okay, 20 years later, I'm like doing math. 20 years later, sometimes there's still a moment where I need to pause and be okay in that emotion, that hard emotion because of what happened, and process it. And then, okay, and then move on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like healing isn't what is it? Healing isn't like a linear thing. Healing is up and down and around and all these things, and you think you're fine, and then all of a sudden something reminds you, and you're like, oh fuck, it's like here I am back here again. Right?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen
Yep.
the guy that like he has like stairs and a trampoline, and he walks up the stairs and he falls off and he bounces back up to the stairs and goes and falls back, like, and it's like that's life, right? You're continuing, you're always attempting to move upwards and onwards, but sometimes things bring you back down. But how resilient are you? How able are you to process it and then continue moving forward?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Because also life is going to deliver you the same lesson shaped in a different form over and fucking over and over until you figure it out. So the sooner that
So
you
you
can
learned the
pause,
lesson? Oh, you didn't learn the
process,
lesson? We're
learn
gonna
the
give you another
lesson.
chance to learn that lesson. I don't understand why I'm always in bad relationships.
Right?
Well, let me tell you,
Yes.
you didn't learn the lesson.
Yes. Yeah. Seriously.
Uh,
It's kind of, it's humorous, but not when you're in it. But when you look back and you finally learned it, you're like, oh my God, I could have I could have
yeah,
avoided so many of these things if I'd learned it
yeah.
the first time. But also, as we kind of chatted about, all of those times that you had to kind of go and have another opportunity to learn it, it all becomes tools in your belt. It's all experiences, it's all
Mm-hmm.
stories, it's all a part
Yeah,
of your roadmap, right?
yeah.
So yeah, I recently read a book. I don't remember which one it
Congrats.
was.
Is this your first one?
I know. Thank you.
There's
It
some
is a good.
like when this gets published, like back some like internet troll like Travis, you are the worst. How could you say that?
Oh my god. That's hilarious. Okay, but in this book that I read, there was the author was talking about a study of these scientists who wanted to create the perfect forest. And so they made this like biodome out in the
I saw that
desert.
movie in the 90s.
No. No, no,
Did you see
I
that
didn't even
movie?
know it
No.
was a movie. No, I
Yeah.
wasn't even allowed to watch Disney movies because there was magic. Okay.
Oh, there's magic in the Bible.
Oh, right. Yes, yes. Miracles.
Moses parted the Red Sea.
Water to wine. That's the important one.
That's the
I'm
important
just
one. Yeah,
kidding.
yeah.
I'm just kidding. But these scientists, okay,
Okay.
they built this dome in the desert and they trucked in all the earth. They have like the perfect oxygen going in and all of these things. And they planted all of these trees and bushes and all of this stuff. And they were really happy with how well everything was growing. And but it was like about maybe 10 years down the road, and all of these trees that they planted that were seemingly healthy kept falling over for no reason. They were just like,
Did they not
they just
bring
kept,
in the right fungus to create the bed of the
no.
forest?
So they're trying to figure it out, right? They're going through all these checklists, but we have this and we have this, and then all of a sudden somebody goes, "We don't have wind."
Don't have wind.
Because they're in the dome and it's protected from everything. Okay, and so by trees out in natural forests, and right, they're experiencing all of these exterior turmoiling events of wind and storms and all of these things that are blowing them around, and their roots are having to go deeper in order to ground, and they're having to go out to connect to each other for support. Right. And so all of these trees in this perfect place did nothing. They were just pretty on the outside. And then as soon as they got a little top heavy, they just fall over. Right. And so like when I read that, I just thought it was so beautiful, because that's what our life is. Our life is, we can try and make it as perfect as we want, but really at the end of the day, the wind, the struggles, the experiences that are hard and uncomfortable or traumatic, that's what, if we take it as the opportunity to, that's what actually creates our depth and our understanding and our empathy, and all of these important values, they come from the hard times. Mic drop.
That's it. Interview's over. We can't go any better from here. I've never heard it put in that context before. I've heard a few other scenarios where they talk about, more than 80% of the world leaders had a horrendous upbringing, because it creates that strength that's inherent to that person. There's two major things. You either have the internal drive or you have an external driver, right? The internal drive is coming from the situations where you keep getting the lesson until you learn the damn lesson, right? Which a lot of broken people out there are attracted to other broken people and wondering why it doesn't work out. But the external factors, if you don't have that internal drive from that hardship, right? If you don't have that thing, that motor that's just pushing you, like my wife grew up on the farm next to her grandparents in the next house over, and like everything was there. It's all self-contained. Her chaos scale is much different than mine is, right? Because she didn't have those type of factors. Like if I'm talking about the stuff that affected me, she feels like she doesn't have room for any of her stories because it wasn't that bad for her. Well, it was bad on her scale, but not bad compared to my scale. And you can't compare the two. But as we talk about these terrible things that happen to us, this is the stuff that makes us who we are. This is the stuff that creates that Titan with us and in us. This is the stuff that creates our superpowers, because everyone's got them. Everyone's got a superpower where, like, man, you did this thing, like, oh, you're like, it was no big deal. For you, the thing that was super easy and you could do it in your sleep, that's a superpower compared to most of the population, because they were really saying that because they have no idea how you did it, even though it's so easy for you. Right? When we have these things that we go through, that we build through, this is the stuff that makes us valuable to society in a whole. That's the things that people get put on our path to, where you can use those tools to help them out, because they don't have the tools to do it themselves, but they have no idea what their tools are. When you talk about, like, a lot of people ask me, like, how am I supposed to answer the question, what makes you tight? I'm like, it depends on you, man. What roots do you have? What things were built within you in order to get to the place you are now, because that the core of who you are is what makes the fruit. It's what, builds the company. That's what, gets you through school. That's what gets you, get your wings as a pilot. Like, that's all the fruit of the core of who
Yeah.
you are that was growing.
Yeah.
And people want to not experience that hard. They want to just get to the easy. And every time you push and every time you struggle and every lesson you learn, that makes your comfort zone bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like, oh, Travis, how can you travel anywhere in the world? Well, the first time I did it, it was terrifying because you don't know anything.
Yes.
But I've been on dozens of trips and been to a dozen countries and all over the place. And now for me, it's easy. But you better not believe the first time I did it, I didn't suck terribly at it. Didn't pack the right stuff. Didn't bring the right money. Didn't have access to the bank card. Didn't I showed up in the
Everything
whole
that could
country
go
is like,
wrong.
dude, what are you doing here? You're like, I don't know idea. Right? I got no idea, but here we are.
But I'm
Learning
here.
something
Present,
new.
not perfect.
Yeah, present, not perfect.
Yeah. But that's
What?
true. Like one of my favorite things is outside of our comfort zone is where we grow. Like there's not very often where I'm in a point in my life where I'm just comfortable. Like almost every single day, I do something that terrifies me in some way, shape, or form, because that's where I'm going to learn, or that's where I'm going to grow. If I just want to stay in this comfortable space, then it's going to be really boring. Right. And like, I'm a little bit of like an adrenaline junkie. I used to be more so of it in a physical space before I had to deal with a bunch of chronic pain issues and whatever, but like downhill longboarding, luging, like jumping out of planes, whatever, right? I love that. And then my body kind of started to force me to slow down to process some trauma in my life.
Yeah.
And so my adrenaline seeking went towards things like this, like doing a podcast or public speaking or trying to do a new habit or communicate in a healthier way, or all of those things, right? They become a different way to step outside your comfort zone, and that's an adrenaline rush when you step outside your comfort zone in some way. And being comfortable in the uncomfortable is
Comfortable in
like,
the uncomfortable. Yes.
that's where I like to be. As soon as I feel like I am comfortable, I literally get uncomfortable in a way that I'm like, oh, I need to do something. I need to learn something new. I need to put myself in some sort of a situation that is going to help me evolve past this place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The thing that gets me, there's a lot of people out there that talk about the top of the mountain is nothing and everything is what it took to get to the mountain. When you're going through a thing that you're really striving to do, like when I went through flight school, I was like, holy shit, like this is a lot. Like there's people in their early 20s there that don't have any dependents, that are going through and they've got whatever they need to do in the day, and then they go drink in the evening and hang out at the beach. And like I was doing it with a wife and 2 kids, and she worked and kids were in school, and I was also doing like insane, right? The whole way as I'm going through this whole process. And then the second it's done and you get the wings and you get the accreditation or whatever the thing was, you look back on it right after you finish. You're happy for 2 seconds. You look back on it and like, well, that wasn't that hard because you made it through it.
Yes.
Right? Because you make it through it. It's so hard. It's so hard every step of the way. And then when you do it, you're like, oh, well, that wasn't too bad, because that whole process, the whole time is you busting out of your cocoon to where you can get to the place where you can truly fly. And then once you do fly, you wonder like how you didn't do it the whole time. Like, how could it possibly be the whole time? Like, really? Like the whole time? Yeah. It when you push yourself, when you are in that struggle, when you're doing that thing, it might feel like imposter syndrome. Like, what right do you have to be here? Right? If you're not feeling that, you're not even trying with your life. If you're not feeling that on a regular basis, you're not even trying. It's just it is what it is, and people got to work on that. As we're getting ready to to come to a close here, Mariel, I wanted to give you the chance to provide a little encouragement to people out there. Someone that's struggling, that's just trying to do something they've never done before. It's the first time putting a toe outside that comfort zone. What advice would you have?
Just to keep going, like just have that resilience, have that drive to push past it. Because exactly what you said, once you're on the other side, you're like, oh, okay. Right. And then that adds courage to your belt. I think, being courageous is being scared and doing it anyways. Like there's so many things that happen in my life personally where I am scared shitless, like, shaking, sweating, like whatever, right? And being able to come through that on the other side, like do it anyways. And then come through on the other side, and you build so much rapport within yourself. You show up for yourself, right? Every time you show up for yourself, that's you holding your shoulders back a little bit more and your chin up a little bit more. And that's really important. And I think like the final thing is honestly my see the light, be the light, right? Like this world is so full of chaos and trauma and negativity, and bad news is all the news we get. And, all of these things are going on. So, but you also find what you look for. Right.
Mhm.
And so if we're always trying to see the light in the world and see that positivity, see where there's somebody helping someone else or all of that, when we're looking for that, we're going to find it. And also be that. Be that for other people. Because my favorite quote, I'm going to slaughter it, so I'm just going to do it like short, is by Marianne Williamson. And she said that our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate, but it's that we're powerful beyond measure. Right. And that like when we shine, we unconsciously give other people the permission to do the same. So when we're looking for that light, when we're being that light, it's contagious. It's contagious. And everybody in our lives needs that kind of contagion.
Just want to infect the whole population with positivity. I love it.
Fucking rights.
Courage is being scared and doing it anyway. That reminds me of a scene. Have you ever seen the Lethal Weapon movies?
Oh, a long time ago.
Yeah, Mel Gibson, Danny Glover. There's a line that Danny Glover says in every film. He says, "I'm getting too old for this shit." Right? And as we get older, like we start feeling that way. But the thing is he said it a lot, and then he went and did it anyway.
Yes.
I'm getting too old for this shit, but I guess we're doing it. Here we go.
Yeah.
Right. I also wanted to come back on one other thing you talked about, the adrenaline rush. So interesting that when that happens to people, it results, generally speaking, in one of two ways. It results in exhilaration, or it results in anxiety or paralyzing fear. And the difference between the two is the story that we tell ourselves. The adrenaline hits. Why did it hit? Which story are you telling? You're at the top of an uncharted mountain, snowboarding in fresh powder. Do you have anxiety or exhilaration? What story are you telling yourself in that moment? Mariel, I wanted to thank you so much for being our guest today. Please let people know the one place you would like them to connect with you.
Probably on Instagram, actually. Yeah. It's
Instagram.
at Mariel.Nicole. Yeah.
At Mariel.Nicole. We'll have those links in the show notes and all of that fun stuff. Thanks again, Mariel, for being my guest.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been wonderful.
That's all for this episode of Titan Evolution Podcast. We hope this no-holds-barred conversation opened your eyes on what it takes to live a genuinely happy life according to your own terms. Now that you've treated yourself to such a refreshing discussion, you cannot listen to nonsense content anymore. Be sure not to miss an episode by subscribing to the show at TitanEvolutionPodcast.com. Don't forget to share the word so more people can be enlightened, informed, and entertained. Thank you for listening.